Hello and welcome back to another Sunday morning, another message from the Blurred Church of Anime. I am your minister, speaker, pastor, whatever you want to call me, Black Star, here to hit you with another message for your week. Hopefully, last week was great. I am praying that this week would be even better for you. If last week kind of sucked, then you know what? That was last week. We're on to this week. It's about to be bomb. Gotta say it, gotta put out that energy, put out those feelers, put out those vibes. I'll be honest though, it's kind of hard for me to come up with the topic for this week. Like, I have some topics, I have some outlines and some messages already written, and I just felt like not right now, not this time. And then this kind of hit me, and I was like, well, let me find like one anime to really like tie it all together. Let me find that one text that we're gonna be using, and it didn't come together. It just didn't. Like, this is timely. I feel like because of where our world is right now, that I kind of have to speak on it, and yeah, one anime just didn't fit, so you're gonna have to bounce around a little bit with me. I hate doing messages like this because like you're like, well, talk about this, and we're gonna talk about that, and then we talk about this, and I promise I'm gonna try to keep it as coherent and as cohesive as possible. But yeah, we're gonna do a little journey, so let's find out how this is going to work together. Um, and really, our topic this week is about peace. I think ultimately it comes up to peace. How do we get to peace? How do we keep peace? What do we have to like put aside in order for there to be peace? And I think I've learned a lot about war and peace and love and propaganda and governments just not living. And I love political science. It wasn't my major or anything in college. It's something I'm personally interested in. I check on the news. I read a lot of things. But I feel like anime has really given me some like insight into what happens when we go to war. And you're probably wondering, like, why is this so on your heart right now? Because have y'all not read the news? Like, ooh, there's a lot going on. I mean, we're in a couple of active conflicts right now. I won't call everything a full out war, but from Ukraine and Russia, that's been going on for a couple of years, with Israel, Iran, and what it looks like what America might get into. Like, again, I'm coming from an American context. I live in the United States. And that's not even talking about how we have stopped talking about Israel and Palestine, which, again, that was not a war. From like even like inter civil like conflicts are happening like in the Congo, all these things. We are just dealing with an amount of people in armed conflict. And it's not even getting into all the social stuff we're getting into, and we're just taking away rights. And a lot of people who are oppressed are feeling that oppression even more right now. So I kind of want to like slim it down and talk a little bit more about armed conflict. And I'm going to be very honest with y'all. Like, I grew up on two things: Mecha and Kaiju. If you don't know what Kaiju is, those are the giant monster battles. Think Godzilla. I love a good mecha. I love a good kaiju. And I don't want to call them, I didn't want to say like, oh, I like, watch a lot of war anime, because war anime can mean a lot. There is such a wide variety. But most kaiju and especially mecha anime ends up being about war. Because why do you have this giant death machine, this giant weapon, if you're not using it for some type of armed conflict? I will say, like, me and Mecha, especially me and Gundam, has a sordid history. I'm not getting into all of that. But me and Kaiju start off with Godzilla. Love me a good Godzilla film. Love most of the Godzilla films. The United States 90s like Godzilla fan, I think it was like with Matthew Broderick, has a special deep place in hell in my heart. I really hate that movie. Um, we're not going to talk about that either. But, start off watching some of the original really badly dubbed Godzilla movies with my uncle, who was a really big fan of those type of things. And I always loved when I got older and I like could recognize past the bad dubbing and finally seeing some of the original and understanding what Godzilla meant. I thought it was so interesting to see this giant dinosaur monster representing American imperialism and just nuclear threat, nuclear fallout. And then over time, watch this great big evil threat to Japan become like its savior. Right? Like really interesting. Like, okay, Godzilla is bad, is destroying all these things, it is wrecking stuff, they're sending all the ships, all the planes out until a bigger, badder monster comes around, and then Godzilla is our only hope. Like by the time we get to the animated series, the animated movies, Godzilla is like the champion of Japan. And when you think about the original metaphor, it's like, what are we saying about our relationship with nuclear stuff and America? Um, that's a whole nother conversation. But I think it's so interesting to look at that conflict of taking the the powers of a supposed enemy and using it for your benefit, for your good, to save humanity against Mothra, against all the other bigger, badder monsters who kind of born in the same way that comes and attacks Japan. And I think we kind of see that in a lot of ways, especially when it's like alien invaders. You know, the metaphor is easy when it's something outside of yourself, when it's something that like is very alien, very different from you. Um, and you have to fight it because it's like wrecking homes, it's destroying lives, it's killing thousands of people. And I mean, if they had gotten rid of Godzilla, but if you gotten rid of Godzilla like in the first movie, the first couple of movies, and he's completely gone, then who's going to save you from the other things? Should they always be gone? And I ponder these type of questions a lot because I'm weird. But I don't know, maybe you're weird like me, which is why you listen to these things and you think about those questions as well. And then I get to other films, kind of like not even films, but I get to like the anime part when I talk about mecha. And yes, I said kaiju and mecha, which means I am a Pacific Rim fangirl. Like, you don't come for me. It was two of my favorite things smashed into a wonderful movie and a half. The second movie, but love the first movie. And then I think about my mecha anime. One thing I will give Gundam. Gundam does a really, really good job about this. Some Gundam series do a really good job about this. Is that in every conflict, they just know they're right. Like whether you're on the Federation side or the colonists or whoever the armed conflict, you always, not always, but in general, get to see the other side, who is the antagonist, the villains, or whatever, depending on what show you're watching. You get a chance to hear their thoughts and why they're doing it, and you're like, you're not wrong. You know that everyone is trying really, really hard to keep their way of life. And I think we're gonna really come back to that point. So put a pin in that, hold it. We're gonna come back on like why it's so much harder to distinguish or to get peace in what we consider like a Gundam war mecha anime than in like monster kaiju. Like in the kaiju, you defeat it, you blow the monster up, the monster's gone. When there are aliens coming attacking, like Independence Day, how dare they come at us first and like blow up major cities? You're Will Smith and you shove a nuclear up their butt. This is what we do. We get peace by ending the threat, even if the threat comes back later. We take what we learned from them and we end up using their powers to save us another place. But we never quite, when the villain, then the evil thing is so alien from us, when they're like bent on our destructions, it becomes very easy and cartoonish. It becomes very much so like they want to destroy our way of lives. We don't care what they're doing. We can't communicate with them. So we come together as humans to get rid of the big threat in hopes that the big threat doesn't come back to get us. But as I mentioned in the other series, those big threats come back. But there's been a kind of like a kind of a switch lately in the past decade or so, maybe less than a decade, where we're starting to see, even with those intergalactic invader narratives, what does it look like to see the other side of the conflict? Um, and yes, this did come about because I was rewatching Kaiju number 8 in anticipation of the new season. I love the first season; it's so good. Was when we started thinking about using your enemy's powers for your betterment, for your people's good. If you haven't watched Kaiju number 8, season 2 is on right now. You can go back and watch season 1. It is a banger of a show. Basically, kaiju are wrecking Japan. They're coming up, killing people, and there's these special soldiers that, come in and kill the kaiju. And there's our main character after, his village was destroyed and his friends and family killed, he's grown up being like, I'm going to be one of those soldiers. I'm going to be on this defense force to save and help our people. And he just can't seem to get on the force. He is falling further and further behind. And then one day he gets mysterious powers of a kaiju. He can turn into the kaiju, do all these type of things. And because he is someone who is hook, line, and sinker about, saving Japan, helping people, being useful, he's going to use his powers to defeat other kaiju. And part of the whole thing is like, okay, this dude really is trying his best, and being secretive about using his kaiju powers to save the rest of the crew from the other kaijus. But he has to be secret because what happens? They find out that he has kaiju powers. He looks like a kaiju. They're going to kill him. Like, us as the audience are like, no, he's a good guy. We let him live, let him do his thing. But you also understand the people in universe is like, we have hate for kaiju. Kaiju have came in and they killed and they're sneaky and they do all these things. Um, all these things are just like not great. And even though we say, okay, this guy is human, he is now othered, and we have to be cautious. Your government has to be cautious. We don't know when this other blood, whatever these powers come from, can make you into an enemy. And that's fair. They have lost a lot to kaiju, and you don't want to just trust anyone just being like, I'm on your side with these powers. I mean, it's still a pretty black and white show on it. Again, haven't gotten into season two. We don't know where we're gonna go in the story, but I was like, how do you put aside some of that prejudice and bias, or do you need that bias in order to use your enemy's powers to like help you defeat them? And then we move into just more of some like slice of life, some cuter animes that talk about the other villain side. There's a really, really cute one called Mr. Villain's Day Off. So think kind of like Power Rangers. Villains are coming from the skies, are going to take over the earth, get rid of all the humans. And you are kind of following slice of life. This lieutenant in the army, he runs a special powers, battling the power not Powerpuff, the Power Ranger type Sentai heroes. But he always has a day off once a week, and on his day off, he just wants to sleep, go to the zoo, and take pictures of pandas because he truly loves pandas. It's so cute. It's like just like this guy, like, yeah, I'm evil because that's my job. I'm working here, but pandas will survive. I love pandas. We also have, what was it, Love After World Domination, where uh, a sergeant in the evil army and is dating the Red Ranger from the Sentai group. And just kind of, and them trying to keep it secret, this day to day stuff is it humanizes the other group because while you're like, okay, one group has been to the destruction, you're like the rank and file, like, yeah, but it's kind of like a job. Like, this is where I came from. I'm a soldier here. I am not the big bad evil. I'm just doing my job. And then you have the the good guys, quote unquote, the Rangers, the Sentai group who are like, yeah, I get that, and there's something great about you, and I know you're not, just you're trying to find peace. It's not as a whole, just kind of like peace in our own little individual lives. Then we get chaos. We get chaotic look into the villain's life. There's a really, really good anime called Go Go Loser Ranger, which is on Hulu and Disney Plus. And guess I have to shout that out because Disney Plus is doing their darndest to never promote any of their animes, no matter how many good animes they have on the app. But Go Go Loser Ranger, again, Power Rangers type show where you have the Sentai group, five colors, and they're defeating the big bad invaders that came from the stars who want to, wipe off all life on Earth. They kill what they call the surface dwellers. It's like the battle's pretty much won, and all that's left are the foot soldiers. Think the putty, the cannon fodder, the people that in the early on in the show, you get rid of all of them to get to the big bad, giant monster at the end. Um, and this is where it goes off the rails a little bit, where you are following one of the fighters, Fighter D, who was again like low rank soldier, just throwaway cannon fodder, and he is tired of how they're being treated by the Power Ranger like characters. they are forced every Sunday to pretend to be boss monsters to fight in front of a crowd. So like even though the war is pretty much over, they're being kept to keep up this facade that the war isn't over, but in this controlled aspect to be constantly smashed and killed by the Rangers per se. Um, and he feels a way about it. So he's like, you know what? Forget these Rangers. I'm going to kill them. I'm going to kill this whole association. But he's like this powerless, like little rank and file soldier. What is he going to do? And it's a wild ride. It also helps that the ranger institution, the main five rangers, especially the red one, are a bit sociopathic or psychopathic. One of red is definitely a psychopath. They are very corrupt and not good. So it helps. It doesn't. I don't know if it helps, but you're not sure who to cheer for. You're not sure who to cheer for, because yes, the invaders did come and kill loads of people and hurt tons of folk. But then on the other hand, you have the Rangers who are currently doing their own mess and hurting people and not saving people because it's an inconvenience. Really caring about their image more so, truth and justice, like they say they are. And kind of seeing the corrupt politics behind it. I do not know how the show's going to end. The second season wrapped up, and it is a wild ride. But I think a lot about like what does it take to say, hey, and I think that the show does dig into this a little bit more of like empathizing with the monsters or empathizing with the villains or the invaders because there wasn't a real conversation. There was just death destruction, and everybody wants to get their lick back. I think that's the number one point is that what we see a lot in war and conflict is that everybody wants to get their lick back. We care more about um we care more about trying to make sure that we aren't left holding the bag, that if someone hurt us, that we are able to get revenge more so than reparations or restoration. Like when everybody wants to get their lick back, you're going to have an unending cycle of conflict, pretty much. And you kind of really see where it's hard for, you hurt me, I have to hurt you back in all these different ways. Um, I just generally I get it. Like I'm one of those people like, yeah, don't hit me, I'm gonna hit you back. Like, but in the end, it never stops until someone stops that cycle. And it gets a little bit harder when the war is between people. Like instead of there being like this extra intergalactic alien monster invader, it's the conflict with actual people. This is where the Gundams come in place. This is where some of our mecha conversations come in place. So while yes, in like most of the Gundam fare, you have the Earth Federation and the colonies in space battling, normally in space battles, sometimes on Earth. But they're people, like they're all humans who originate from the same place, just it's a war of independence for some, it's a war of community for another, and both sides have like legit reasons for why they got into the conflict. As you get into and talking to the commanders or the fighters who are in this war, you realize like a lot of people are fighting for ideals. A lot of people are fighting because their government told them something. My first Gundam was Gundam Wing. No shame. I'm very happy that my first Gundam was Gundam Wing. I think it helped prepare me for the general themes of other Gundams, so that way I would not dismiss them. And one thing I would say Gundam Wing did really, really good job of is these pilots kept going back and forth. Like every other episode, what side are you on? Who are you fighting for? And it like really narrows it down from there being like this political conflict to it being a people conflict. Um, a lot of other Gundams do that as well. They show like a particular battle or a particular group of people. I think another one of the Gundams I really like is the 08th MS team. It's kind of like a Romeo and Juliet story a little bit. And then War in My Pocket, which is a one shot, which is really, really interesting. But you really get to see the humans behind it, and you get to understand about the zealots, you get to understand about people who are drafted in a war. I think Gundam a lot is about, especially kids who are drafted in war. Let's be honest, in a Gundam, you got to be under the age of 20 driving a mecha if you don't want to die, unless plot. Like I'm at the point now where I know like if Gundam was real, if I was in these conflicts, I would die to help the teenager like assume Net's battle scars or whatever. I don't know. I would not survive a Gundam show. I I think it's really interesting about, and I think it's really interesting having those group of young people because they are your next generation, and then they become later on leaders, and they already see this host of really bad things. They've already been betrayed. They also learn these secrets, and then they have to choose what they're going to do with it and continue in the conversations. There are also some pieces in Gundam where there is a stalemate, where there is like a cease or truce, a ceasefire happening, and it's like, how do you keep that going? And a lot of times, just like in real life, just like in the conflicts we're seeing today across the world, it just takes one zealot, it takes one person who wants to get their lick back to do something that upends the unsteady truth that is happening. I think across the world, all the conflicts that we're seeing from, Israel and Iran, Israel and Pakistan, not Pakistan, Israel and the Palestinians, um, Ukraine and Russia, America being involved in that. These are not things that happened in the last decade. These are generational. These are things from multiple decades, even 100 year, if you know history of going back of like little conflicts and some big conflicts that eventually there was a truce or there was a ceasefire, there's a stalemate, something happened, and then little things happen where everybody, not everybody in the group, but there's some faction, there's some group that wants to get their lick back. That they remember this atrocity that happened. They remembered these people that died because of this thing. They remembered these unfair practices. And they have every right to be upset. They have every right to want a better life. They have every right to want to have things go back the way they used to be. Like some of these conflicts are going back thousands of years of, mythology and ideas of like, this is our space. Like even even the Soviet, like nothing is in isolation. And I feel like it's very interesting when people try to have these conversations about these groups and these countries that are, again, all made up and all based off of like other conflicts that have happened and groups of people who have moved in there to be like, well, in the last 10 years, this thing happened. Like, no, no, you're going to have to go a little bit further back than that. Because I promise you, even though it may have been 2 generations ago, there's someone still alive who remembers the tragedy of what happened to their people, to their family, to their village, their town, and want some type of revenge. Not restoration, revenge, some reclaiming of the power they lost because of it. And that's what makes peace so hard. It is generally really, really hard when your government is feeding into this idea of we can make you safer if we do this, and that we will get our lick back if we do this. Because in a lot of these conflicts, in America too, we are very big about, if we are the world cops, like, yes, we'll step in some emergencies like some cops do, but we also like to bully like some other cops do. Sometimes we decide it's not to my benefit, it's too dangerous to step in like some cops do. Like, it's an apt name. We look at these as like smaller countries, these newer countries that come together and they're fighting for existence. We look at some of these older countries and these countries that have more resources, and you're like, okay, well, maybe you're bullying this other country, but they have history of like, we need this for our people. It's very, very hard. I mean, and we can, in your own opinion, you can decide, what side you're on. But I think a big piece of this is the empathy towards the other side, and knowing that like we will not end conflict if we're constantly trying to one up each other. And that's how we escalate. When you want to get your lip back, and not just get your lip back, but also send a message, what some of these countries are trying to do, even though some of the more ethno states and things are happening within their own countries, and civil wars that happen and revolutions and just coups that happen, it is someone blaming, remember when things used to be this way, or I want things to be that way. The leaders, charismatic leaders, whether government officials or military leaders or whatever, investing that into the public, getting public sentiment on their side, and then using soldiers to then carry that out. It's really, really hard. and I'm an optimist, but I'm also a realist. So I know this is not this something because I said this happens that someone's gonna listen to me in whatever country and be like, we should just try peace. Because I recognize peace is hard. I recognize it's really, really hard to let a bad thing happen to your people, to you, and not immediately seek revenge to prove that you're not a target for further things. And the world just doesn't work in, just the best scenarios that we like to see it. But we also need people who are strong enough to really not just advocate for peace, but put their money where their mouth is. I don't trust governments to do it, to be very honest. Um, as we see in a lot of these shows, whether it's the kaiju shows, whether it's the Power Rangers are the people with the power, or it's a Gundam, a Mecha, or whatever, where you have different governments having a conversation about what to happen and how we deal with the insurgencies or the invaders or the whatever, that there's a government vested interest that is kind of different from the everyday people. They use propaganda to get you to be invested in it and for you to want to lose your life and to give your all and to like sacrifice towards this ideal that they like, this nostalgic sometimes ideal that they give you on why this is so important. um but you're also the person that watches the loss. I'm going to use 9/11 as an example. So I was a teenager when 9/11 happened. And I remember the feeling of like patriotism towards America because we were so brutally attacked. And so many people lost their lives. And not just the people in the towers, the people in the planes, not just the folk in the Pentagon, but also there was the first responders, those who went in to help. And so there was this public across the nation just idea of like, hey, we got to come together. And then when our leaders like, we should get our lick back, we all like, yeah, we should get our lick back. Too many people died. That is just, this is too much. That they're gonna think we're weak, blah blah blah. Now we're like 20 years removed from it. You may talk to survivors of that day, family members of those who were victims into the terrorist attacks, and they may have a different idea. Some of them would be like, I never wanted us to go to war, especially now with Iraq, considering all the information we have about what happened in these attacks. Some people are like, no, I'm so glad we went. We needed to show us strength, so they never did this thing again. Like there's so there you have thousands of different opinions about what happened in that moment from this one attack that affected millions of people. Even if you didn't live in New York, even if you didn't have relatives or friends, like it still affected you and your sense of safety in this world. It's super important to know though that like the propagation that we still invade other countries and for the terrorist group that did that has that fervor has died down in the 20 years. I'm sure there's still some people who are like, F the Middle East, F all these countries that had anything involved, Al Qaeda, whatever, because, they were part of this planning and like they want their lip back. There's still not enough to like compensate for the lives lost in that moment. But there's other people like, there's nothing that I think will bring my people back. And I'd rather us not make enemies so that we don't have those type of attacks happen again. And even the conversation about not having these type of attacks happen again is vast and different. People think if you show a strong show of force, then people be too terrified to do this thing again. No, no, we'll calm down and turn you into a parking lot. We tried that for a number of years. It doesn't seem to be working, but that's an idea. Versus other people like, if we make friends, if we have no enemies, these kind of things won't happen. And I'm like, yeah, we could do all the things, we could do all the aid to support and not destabilize the countries that have these terrorists that want to come and hurt us. But again, they're still getting their lip back from other things we have done through the years. That there's no way for us to again tell a person and groups of people who are being preyed upon with their emotions because they've lost so much, they've lost home, they lost land, they lost family, they lost friends, that and we've been told that we are the evil ones, that America is the evil part, that our way of life feeds into all these things that are wrong with their life. Like it's really hard to like dismantle that. It's up to bring it to life and truth to be like, we're not your enemies. I think the way you create peace is to not have enemies and to not make enemies. When you're constantly going to show a force, when you're the biggest on the block. I mean, that's the whole reason America got those made nuclear weapons. during World War II. Is the reason we brought in those German scientists that were doing all those awful things in Germany, because we rather use the powers of our enemies and their bringing knowledge to bring back over here so that we could be first, so we could have a bigger weapon, something scarier to stop them. And we've seen that this doesn't work. It doesn't stop the wars. So maybe we should look at a more radical way of doing it. How do we bring peace? How do we do the work that keeps yourself safe? Because again, we don't want to just sacrifice and let's sacrifice our own citizens, our friends, our family, to this because we're trying to keep peace and be a target. But also, we don't want to continue to build ill sentiment that will never let us get out of this cycle, because at this point it is a cycle. One thing I would definitely say, and a shout out to Big Mouth for this episode, this last season, compassion and empathy towards who your other group is, or who the enemy so called is. When we dehumanize our enemies, when we make them into monsters and demons, we do not empathize to understand what is the underground reason or the underlying reason of why they are attacking us, or feel that they are or feel like they're being threatened by us. So then we can address the problem and have conversations. It's really, really hard to have peace negotiation and talks when you have your citizens and you tell your citizens that these other people, especially other citizens, are evil and not good and want to destroy your way of life. We don't even know what the way of life they're trying to destroy. I think a lot about the Desco, which is a really another good like space anime mecha war show, and me, I say, yeah, we can talk with each other. It'll be perfect. It'll be great. But then I think about, and this is a spoiler, but this show is like 40 years old at this point, so do what you want. You can skip ahead if you don't want to hear the spoiler. But at some point in Nadesco, the main character, who is the mecha pilot, comes up upon this enemy that they've been fighting for years, and they, manage to get the helmet off this alien enemy, and it is literally them from a different timeline. Not like the main character, but it's like humans from another timeline. And that's the big reveal. It's like you're not fighting these aliens, you're literally fighting yourselves. And you would think, okay, now that the main character knows that, now that the secret has been revealed, they would go to the government and be like, we need to stop. This is crazy. But at this point, there's too many losses on both sides. Like, they have lost so much in these conflicts. There's so many towns and countries and planets that have been destroyed, that there's such ill sentiment that doesn't matter that the person you're looking at is legit you. Um, and you have to keep going through the motions to annihilate them, as that's the only way you can achieve peace. And it is harrowing, just horrifying as well, to know that that is how we do live our lives, that we are literally watching wars and we're watching armed conflict of people that look exactly like each other, folk who have history, shared families, shared trees, civil war, in America notwithstanding. But you, like, even when you like look at that, it's like there's too much blood loss, there's too many things happening that we cannot stop unless there's just full unconditional surrender, and now we have to prove that we're on top. And that is not the way to peace. I'm sorry, it just really isn't. Like, somebody has to break the cycle of, I have to get my lick back. So how do you keep yourself from not being a target? I think a lot of times that we could put our work into defense, just defending our people and making sure that our money, our research, our development is spent towards like making sure bad things don't come our way versus being the bad thing to other people. As a child of the 90s, 2000s, living through multiple, terrorist things happening across the world. Also, since college, every city I've lived in, except this current city, has had a terrorist attack, both domestic and international. So I'm someone who grew up knowing like terrorism can happen anytime. It's just something you cannot fight. And like, as a human, as a regular everyday person, not in the military, not super, high up, just an everyday person, it's dangerous, especially in America, to go to the mall, to go to the movies, go to a concert, go to church. Like, there's just so many other ways where I can end up in a terroristic attack, or in, a mass shooting of, just random violence. But instead of me living my life in fear and me, just cursing the heavens and not doing these things, I rather go out, live my life, and then really champion things, especially here in America, that will help deal with the underlying issues of why people do these acts of violence. Like, I don't have much to say on international policy, so I don't think there's anything I could do to stop 9/11. But when I think about, terrorist attacks from racists, when I think about mass shootings from, disaffected youth, when I even think about just, being clipped by a stray bullet during a drive-by, whether it's a mafia, mob, cartel, gang violence, or, people just having beef with each other and you just happen to be in this crosshairs. Like, are we doing mental health? Do we have like all these resources to help especially young kids and people who fall into those groups that use violence? Do we have options for them to opt out? Do we have restoration and restorative justice practices so that they understand like the harm they cause? I think a lot more people, especially in gang communities and gang culture, have become more sociopathic where they don't feel or empathize with even their own members, are the people that they're hurting, their family members, especially not the folk they're actively targeting. And I think there could be more work that we do to really like catch kids early and that effect. If I'm gonna be robbed, if someone is, doing something because they need the money, where are safety nets for people who don't make a lot? Well, how do I make sure that people have what they need so they're not targeting me? Well, I don't have a lot myself, but I'd rather do that than, get my lick back from that one person that did this attack. And it is not a base emotion. It's things I had to work on. Like, I am Queen Petty. I will find a way to get back at you for doing something. Like, if you scratch my car, I'm gonna scratch your car back. Like, I admit it that I'm not perfect when it comes to this thing. And I also think we can make sure that we don't escalate. Like, if you scratch my car, I'm not gonna hit your dog with my car. Like, that's escalation. Because if I did that and then you killed my cats, I'm gonna have like we're at war. Like, war is the easy answer. It's trying to make amends and trying to do restorative justice and restoration when harm has happened, because we're gonna harm people. We're humans. It is what it is. That is the hard work. And I just really want to encourage you to do the hard work. I mean, we may not have much say in our government right now and how we're dealing with the conflicts and our other governments. And I know there's a lot of things we wish the people who are elected would do, but I think we can start in our own times of, when we're harmed, do we go back to automatically harm somebody else? Or do we find a way to kind of to build that bridge to restore? Are there cycles you're currently going through where you just keep trying to get that last lick back because you got to prove that you're bigger and better than this other thing? Is there a way that we can negotiate it? Are there people you could talk to about how to negotiate, you know conflict that doesn't revolve around causing more conflict? Are you conflict averse? That's another question to ask yourself. But yeah, this is getting pretty long. I feel like I said a lot, but I hope that the message for this week and kind of like the upside, the positive of it is that I think there are ways to get to peace. It's a lot harder than just going out and starting a war. I mean, yes, there's some justified reasons. We don't want to see genocides. We don't want to see mass hurting of people. But even when it's justified reasons, like look at John Wick, like him going full Yaga Baba. I forget what his name was in the first this movie, but him going full Wick after they, I think he would have let it go if they just stole his car. He'd get his car back. But when they killed his dead wife's dog, her present to him, justified to go full out. But 5 movies and a spinoff later, this man has not known peace. Okay? He's back in the game and it's has not stopped. Was it worth it? Maybe in the moment, but now where years later, is it still worth it? Sometimes you feel like it's justified, but future vision. Will you get to know peace? Is it leading you down a path where everybody has to be gone for you to be able to rest at night with not one eye open? And again, I'm not here for us being the human punching bags. Like, I love Steven Universe. I love Steven in Steven Universe. But that boy was a punching bag, and I'm kind of glad they sort of addressed it in Steven Universe future. But we need to be more of a shield than we need to be a sword aiming at other groups and other people. Because you will not know peace that way. We just won't. So yeah, those are my thoughts. I love to hear what you think in the comments. Are there other animes that you like about? Sorry, let's rephrase that. Are there other animes that deal with war and invasions that you think get to this piece? Are there animes that you think completely knock what I say off his access that I need to watch or I'm not thinking about. Love to know it. Listen, there's never too much anime for me to watch and to experience. So love to hear from you. Thank you for joining us for another Blurred Church of Anime. Have a wonderful week, y'all. And despite the craziness going on in the world, stay strong, stay positive, stay hopeful, and stay encouraged.